Welcome to the video, guys. My name is Charlie, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about the vinyl wrap on the C5 Corvette. You see, this is a video I've been needing to make for quite a while now because the vinyl wrap on this car is over a year old now, so it's long due for me to make a video on a long-term review on how it's held up, what parts have failed, what still looks great, and some of the things that I learned that maybe I could have done better if I ever do this job again myself. But first, if you're new to the channel, definitely consider subscribing. If you find this video helpful and you like it, hit the like button and all that normal other YouTube jazz kind of stuff. If you have any questions about anything, leave it in the comments below. I'll try and get back to you. If there's anything you want to know more about, I may make some more videos. Just let me know. But first, I want to make a quick disclaimer that I am not a professional. I don't do this for a living. In fact, this is the first and only car I have ever vinyl wrapped myself. I don't plan to do another one, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. But this is something that was not done by a professional. I didn't pay anybody to do it. So some of the blemishes and some of the things that went wrong with this, keep in mind that you may not run into those same problems. If you pay a professional shop who does this for a living, more than likely they're not going to make the same mistakes that I did. But with that, that also should go to show that this is something that you definitely can do yourself. If you're on the fence about learning how to do this, there are tons of resources online, and you definitely should at least consider tackling the job yourself if you have the time and the space and the resources available to do it, because it was really rewarding. I absolutely love the car in this color. I'll show you a picture at some point of what it was before and what it is after, and it makes me extremely happy to see the car. With that, let's just dive right in. First, I'm gonna go ahead and spoil the video for you. It turned out fantastic. I love it. I'm still extremely happy with it. I have put a few thousand miles on the car, track and off track, driving in the rain, driving in the summer, all the weather, normal wear and tear for a car that stays in the garage most of the time. And it's held up far, far, far better than I would have expected when I first put it on or before I started. My original goal with this car was literally just to look good from 75 feet from a photographer off of the paddock at a track day. I just wanted the car to look a different color from far away, like Hollywood style. Like if you get up close, I don't really care what it looks like, but just from far away in pictures, just when it's going through a turn at a track or something and a photographer's getting an action shot of you coming past, I just wanted to look good from there. But it turned out far better than I could have ever hoped, and I'm extremely proud of the work that I did do on it, even though it was the first and only time. I really, really like the color combination. I'm glad that I did it. So that's one of the good things. Two, it's held up a lot better than I thought. The parts that I thought were going to peel back, some of the edges, I thought were going to start to peel back pretty quickly whenever it saw rain. I didn't drive it a lot in the rain, but I did still drive it in the rain, and I was kind of concerned about the edges. If water gets behind, obviously, any adhesive, it starts to lose its stick. But surprisingly, there's only been a few places on here where it started to lose its stick. But other than that, it's held up extremely well. It's also done a fantastic job of protecting the paint beneath it. You can see on the front, there's really not that many rock chips that have gone all the way through the vinyl. You can see tons of rubber marks from the track where, rubber's getting slung up from the car in front. Now, I don't plan to take the vinyl off ever, so I don't really care what the paint looks like underneath. But if that's something that you're concerned about, because some people use vinyl wrap just kind of as a measure to recolor the car, but also to protect the original paint underneath. If you had something really expensive or something and you wanted to recolor it, this is kind of like doubles as a recolor plus a paint protection film, because vinyl is really thick, and I think it does a great job of protecting from rocks, debris, anything like that that gets kicked up on the car. It helps with that a lot. Also, like I mentioned, there are no parts on the car that are peeling up really to merit any kind of repair. I've not had to pull off any of the original vinyl and replace it. This is all how it was when I installed it a year ago, which is nice because I ordered a lot of extra vinyl and I just have it sitting around in the closet. Now, moving on to some of the things that have gone wrong with the vinyl. Well, it's really not a lot, is it? There are a few places up on the front bumper, which we will walk around the car here in a minute, and I'll kind of point out real close up some of the things. The bumper was by far the most difficult. On this car, it's all one huge piece. You have to heat and stretch the you-know-what's out of it to get it to conform to it right, which puts a lot of stress on the vinyl. And I probably heated and stretched it a little bit more than you're supposed to, but I just wanted it done. And like I said, that was one of the spots that I thought was gonna fail first, but knock on wood, it hasn't actually failed really significantly. Two of the black inserts that I did have started to show some wear, probably from rocks hitting it. With the vinyl under so much tension, if you do get a rock that is able to cut through the whole vinyl, it just pulls it away, and I'll show you some of those here in a second. But for the most part, the bumper has held up fantastic. There's no pulling back of the vinyl, which was something that I was concerned about, which is where when you heat and stretch it, over time, if it sits out in the sun and heats up again, it wants to pull back. If you do know anything about vinyl, you'll probably have heard the term these heat stretch marks on the vinyl, which is where you heat the vinyl up when you're laying it down and you kind of heat it along a crease and you pull it and it stretches at the point where it's not laid down. It'll be more clear when I show you up close. If you look close under certain lights, you definitely can see all the blemishes in the vinyl itself. This is Vvivid vinyl. Now, I'm not sponsored by anything. I'm not getting paid to talk about this. They didn't send me anything. I don't make any money if you go buy Vvivid vinyl. It looks great, but when you do get close to it, you definitely can see a texture. It definitely does not look like paint. And if you paid somebody and your paint looked like this, I'd be going right back to them and getting your money back. But for vinyl wrap, the cost versus painting it, it's temporary, it's protective. All those things outweighed for what I was interested in. So I'm not super worried about it looking perfect. But you can tell in the places where I heated it and stretched it way too much, and it puts a line in the vinyl. You can't see if you get really close, but if this is going on a car that's really expensive or you really care about that kind of thing, it's something that you want to look out for. Honestly, other than that, there's really not that much that's gone wrong with it. Now, I do want to make one caveat with this entire review and all of my opinions on the long-term durability of this vinyl. This car is garage kept. I keep it inside. It's not sitting outside in the sun, the snow, the rain, all that stuff. It does stay in the garage, but it does get driven, and it does get driven decently hard. So it's not babied, it's not covered. I do wash the car relatively regularly, not super duper often. Not like I would a painted car, but I do wash the car, which is another thing that I had concerns with as far as the water goes. Water was the biggest thing with this vinyl that I was concerned about. Was, again, it's the edges. If water gets underneath, I mean, it's the same thing like if you ever look at, if you tape something down and it gets any water under it, it just immediately starts to peel back. That's what I was most concerned about with this, but surprisingly, again, driving in the rain, washing the car, detail sprays, anything like that, nothing has up to this point become a problem, which is good. But, you know, I mean, other than that, there's really nothing else to say. I'm gonna walk you around the car. I will show you those things that I talked about, some of the points that have started to fail, and I'll show you some of the up close. So hopefully you can see the texture. I don't know if it's gonna come through on camera, but I'm hoping I can at least show you to see what I'm talking about. It's kind of that, you know, really cheap orange peely paint type look, but it looks good. When you're 3 or 4 feet away from it under, these lights are pretty harsh on it, but if you look at it under normal lights and stuff, it looks really good. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn on the big lights. They don't look good for video, so I have them off now, but to show you all the details, I'm gonna turn on the big, bright, annoying lights, and hopefully I can show you some of the things that I have been talking about. So let's get to that. All right, guys, awesome. So now we got the big lights on, we can hopefully start looking at some of the details that I was talking about earlier. So one of the first things I want to point out is all the stuff in the front that I was talking about, because ultimately that's where all the issues really occurred. First, so this is really honestly the only problem area of the car has been these inserts that we decided to do black, which I think look really cool, and I'm glad we did it, but you definitely can see some of the parts where it's starting to pull back a little bit because it was heated and stretched so much. This is actually a piece of clear tape. Fun fact, I use that a lot on the car. Let's see if we can see it here as well. These are pieces of clear, like Scotch tape, and they work really well to hold this seam down because the car is gray. This black is also vinyl, and then the white obviously comes up to it to make this seam, and occasionally spots this little bit of crinkling and pulling back. I just use this clear tape just to tape it back down, and again, from 2 or 3 feet away, you'll never notice it. Same thing in here. You can see a little bit of these places where I had to patch it and it's starting to crinkle up a little bit, but they're really not all that noticeable. This is one of those places that it was heated and stretched way too much, and I actually just cut another piece of vinyl and I just vinyled over the gap there. Let's see if this is gonna focus. There we go. Yeah, see, you can kind of see right in there. Same thing with the black. You can tell it's really, really hard to see. But there is a spot here. Again, same thing. In these really tight spaces, we just heated it up and stretched it way too much. It tore, and my solution was just cut another piece and cover up the part that tore. And it's held up really well. And actually, this is a better example of the tearing because I have not had time to come patch it. These are likely places where rocks hit the vinyl and tore through this part that was stretched way too much. Again, you can see here where it's starting to pull back. I've already put one patch over it. I'm gonna have to come back and put another patch over it. But again, these things are so small on this car, it really didn't matter to me. From 5 feet away, you don't notice it. So I want to point this out as well. That's another one of the issue spots that, again, same problem. These little inlets, I heated it up so much and stretched it that it was inevitable that this was eventually going to pull back, which after a year, if that's all that's pulled back, I'm actually quite happy with that. One other thing that I want to point out while I'm down here is this little patch here. This is actually the same color vinyl as the rest of the bumper, but this kind of goes to show you just how much the bumper is stretched. The vinyl is stretched so much that it's thinned out enough to where the gray color of the actual car underneath has started to discolor and darken the vinyl on top of it. Little details, if it's something you care about. It's not something I care about. No one has ever noticed it. And so I'm fine with that. Same thing here, more tape. It's really clever stuff. It's just held up for a year as well. Another thing that I don't see a lot on C5s, it doesn't do anything at all whatsoever, but it looks kind of neat. I put the little black inserts on there. I just got rid of my C7 Grand Sport, but I really like the black accents on the front quarter vents on Grand Sports and Z06s, and so that's kind of what inspired that. Another really tricky spot were the door handles. I pulled them off. Fortunately, on a car this old, pulling off components was really quite straightforward. And you can see some of the issues here. You can see this is kind of peeling back just a little bit in there, and this is kind of wrinkly and stuff. But again, from about 5 to 10 feet away, if you don't point this out, a lot of people never notice. Rocker panels, same thing. Held up really well. You can see some black marks from track, from rubber, and all that good stuff. Oh, these are part of the parts that I was most concerned about peeling back, but as you can tell, really not that bad. I don't see any peeling back at all of it. Kind of around the whole thing until we get back, well, no, not even back here. Even back here right behind the tire, it's definitely discolored and it's got some staining and probably a little bit of tears in it and stuff. Probably a few marks in it, but I mean, ultimately it's held up really, really, really well. Same thing with the top. The top was not normally black. I did the black roof just to add a little bit of contrast to it. It has held up quite nicely. This was the first thing that I tackled, was the roof, because conveniently on Corvettes, you can take them off, so I didn't have to worry about reaching over the roof or anything. And then I did the halo, and you can actually see a seam right here. I did not cut the vinyl properly, so I didn't have enough to go all the way across, so I just made a center seam. Again, if you take this to a professional, that's the kind of work that they would just redo. I didn't want to buy more vinyl, so I just cut it. Hood has held up really well, aside from the rubber tire marks here on the hood. Can't get that off, but I don't really care. I'm gonna try to get to see the texture on here. I don't know if you really can see. I'm really not seeing any. Let's see, I got an idea. Got our trusty detail light. Let's check this out. It's something that, again, it's really subtle. You might can see that in a little bit of the reflections. It's just kind of orange peely. If you're putting this on a really expensive car, just understand the limitations of vinyl. I mean, it is still just a giant sticker, so at some point you're just gonna have to be happy with that. So here are the door jambs. Not the cleanest, but it's held up perfectly fine. And if it's a part of the car that you don't see, I was not worried about it. Another place I wanted to point out, around the hood, this is a good spot to show some of the corners, how they've held up. You know, I didn't have a whole lot of confidence in my corner abilities, but man, they have held up. It's not a super high stress area. There's not a lot going on right there, but just with the heat of the engine bay and everything like that, I thought that surely some part of the hood was gonna peel back, but fortunately, it's held up really, really well. Another thing I wanna point out is the back of the car I did in satin black. I think it turned out really, really well. You can just barely faintly see Corvette through the bumper right around here, which is kind of neat, but same thing, it's held up really well. I've washed the car a bunch. There's a lot of debris that gets drawn to the back of the car, so you have to wash it pretty aggressively, and man, it still holds up really, really well. Even in the recessed taillight sockets, again, no peel back, no nothing. So guys, I hope that showed you a little bit more in detail some of the issues and things you can watch out for if you decide to vinyl wrap the car yourself, or you know, just kind of the overall health of vinyl wrap on a car that's moderately taken care of, kept in a garage out of most of the elements most of the time over the course of about a year or so. I definitely expect this vinyl wrap to hold up a good bit longer. I'm gonna keep driving it the same way that I have, and so hopefully, as long as none of the issues on the front get much worse than they are now, I probably won't do anything to the vinyl to replace anything or fix anything other than maybe patch things here or there if rocks or anything like that tears in the vinyl. Thanks guys for watching again. If you have any questions about anything, definitely leave a comment below. Check out that other video. I linked it in the description if you want to know more about the vinyl that I used, some of the tools that I used, how much it cost, what I did to prepare for it and what you have to do and things like that. Check out the video in the description below. Keep in mind it was the first video I ever made, so it's a little rough. But with that, till next time.